nothing but the truth. Narendra Modi will go down in history as only the second Prime Minister of India in 6 decades or 60 years to have served a third consecutive term. That's an outstanding achievement by itself. But with the BJP being denied a clear majority in Parliament, it is a personal setback for Modi. His third term signals the return of coalition politics to the country after a gap of a decade, and this raises serious questions about the longevity of his government and its ability to deliver. Hello, I'm Raj Chengap of India Today, and in this episode of Nothing But the Truth, we will analyze the challenges and pitfalls for Modi 3.0, also try and answer the question whether it will complete its full 5 years term or fall by the wayside in between. First, a sum up of Verdict 2024. When the results of the Lok Sabha election were declared on June 4th, the BJP's tally had surprisingly dropped by 20%. Remember, most exit polls had predicted that they would win with not only a clear majority but a landslide one. Instead, their tally had dropped by 20%. From the 303 seats that the BJP had won in 2019, it had dropped to 240 seats this time. That meant the party was 32 seats short of a simple majority of 272 seats that it needed on its own to form a government. As you know, the Lok Sabha strength is 543 and 272 is the halfway mark. The BJP tally went down to 240 seats. That meant it had to rely on the 53 seats won by its National Democratic Alliance partners or NDA partners, including the Telugu Desam Party and the Janata Dal United, for it to secure a majority and lay claim to govern. The opposition's Indian National Development Inclusive Alliance, or India, led by the Congress, did again surprisingly well with a tally of 234 seats. So if the NDA had got 293 seats, the India Alliance had got 234 seats. The Congress's tally of 99 seats may appear very modest, but compared to its past performance, particularly its tally in the 2 previous tours, it is almost double that of what they had got then. Now, the Indian voter seems to have struck the right balance between the warring political forces and sent out an unambiguous message. And what is that message that they sent out? Clearly, the Indian voter wanted the continuity and stability that Modi and his team represent, but are against absolute domination by a single party. So they voted for a strong opposition that could hold the government to account and also to hammer out a consensus on how to rapidly solve key issues such as rising unemployment and inflation that continue to trouble the country. So why did the BJP fail to secure a simple majority of its own? I will give you 5 reasons. There are many, but I'll give you 5 reasons of that. The first reason is that while the BJP may not admit it, experts believe that the results do show that Modi's electoral invincibility has been seriously dented, especially because Modi made election 2024 a presidential-style campaign. If you recall, he held over 180 rallies across the country, promising everyone Modi ki guarantee. He also set an ambitious target of winning 370 seats for the BJP and pushed for a super majority of 400 plus seats for the NDA. And therefore, in the event when the BJP's final tally of 240 seats, which would have been considered creditable by any standard, seemed like a huge come down. Now, political analyst Amitabh Tiwari, whom I spoke to, likens the progress of brand Modi to what management experts consider the 4 stages of a product life cycle. Since we're talking of brand Modi, the comparison is interesting because normally experts say there are 4 stages. When you introduce a product, one is introduction, then there's growth, then there's maturity and decline. Now, Tiwari says that the results of this particular election demonstrates that Modi has crossed the maturity stage and is headed for decline. Now, that is a very serious analysis of this, and he backs it and quotes the post-poll study done by the Delhi-based Center for Study of Developing Societies, or CSDS, which also indirectly indicates this trend of the decline of brand Modi, or the Modi premium as it is called. Now, the CSDS study reveals that while Modi remained the leading choice of voters to become Prime Minister in this election, his numbers had declined from 47% when a similar poll was done in 2019, the last general election, to 41% now. That is a drop of 6 percentage points and is considered significant by the pollsters. Sandeep Shastri, one of the authors of this particular study, whom I spoke to, says, and I'm quoting him, there is a clear plateauing of support for brand Modi. Interestingly, the same study showed that the gap between Modi and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi had narrowed from 24 percentage points in 2019 to 14% this time. Now, these are significant things. Of course, it will be hotly contested, but the fact is that that is considered one of the reasons why the BJP did not strike a majority this time, because brand Modi was on its way down. The second reason is that Modi's pitch for a brute majority, remember he said 400 par, which is 400 plus seats, could have had a negative impact on the BJP's overall campaign, especially after Rahul Gandhi and others in the India bloc charged the BJP of wanting such a majority, a landslide majority, to effect major constitutional changes. Now, Rahul Gandhi said that the BJP was planning to scrap, among other things, reservations for the backward classes, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. This clearly seemed to have spooked the voter. And if you analyze the thing, I won't give you too many figures, but we have done a study of it, and the BJP's tally of seats from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe reserve seats dropped significantly, and the Congress gained. That was the second thing, that there was a feeling that the Congress had created, that the BJP was using this brute majority that Mr. Modi sought to really change the fundamental parts of the constitution and deny them reservation. The third reason is that India formation successfully capitalized on voter discontent on two major fronts: unemployment or joblessness and inflation. Again, just to quote the CSDS study that I had said earlier, when that study was done, and remember it's a post-poll study, so they're doing it simultaneously while voting is going on, and therefore they get a more accurate assessment of what the voter thinks. And the voters, those who were surveyed in this particular poll, showed that two of the issues that were highest among the concerns were joblessness and inflation. Now, also very interestingly, more than 50% of the respondents said that their economic condition had either remained the same or worsened in the past year. Now, many, and this particular figure shows that many rural voters seem disillusioned by the Modi government's performance, and an internal study by India Today, our India Today research analysis, showed that the BJP lost as many as 49 rural seats out of the 198 it won in 2019. That's a very high percentage of 25% of the seats. And the Congress gained 26 rural seats from their tally as compared to the last election, and that meant that it almost doubled the number of seats it won from rural India. Now, also, I mean, while we are pointing out the reasons for the BJP's inability to get a majority at this time, let us not take away some of the major creditable performances that the BJP has done, and I will deal with that before I come back to the other reasons as to why the BJP failed to get a majority. Let's be clear that the BJP had an extremely creditable win in Odisha, where they secured 20 of the 21 seats in the Lok Sabha, and for the first time won a simple majority in the assembly, ousting the Naveen Patnaik BJP government. And remember, the elections for the assembly were held simultaneously. Also, the BJP expanded its seats in Andhra Pradesh, where it had tied up with the Telugu Desam Party, or the TDP, as I mentioned earlier, and it was its junior partner. Therefore, it benefited from the landslide victory that former Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu pulled off in the assembly election that was, as like in Odisha, held at the same time. Now, when it comes to its own fortresses, the BJP held Gujarat. It won, barring one seat, it won 25 out of the 26 seats. Madhya Pradesh won all 29 seats, and in Chhattisgarh as well, it did very well, while it did make modest gains in Telangana and scored a major psychological victory with a seat in Kerala for the first time ever. But these gains were hardly any consolation for the blow it received in the four key swing states of Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, West Bengal and Bihar. Now, these four states account for as many as 210 seats in the Lok Sabha, and the BJP tally in these four states plummeted to 66 from the 120 it won on its own in the previous election. That was serious damage. The party also posted losses in Rajasthan, Haryana, Karnataka and Jharkhand as well. The harshest blow really came from Uttar Pradesh, which has always been regarded as a BJP bastion, and it had given them, in 2019, the BJP had won 62 of the 80 seats that was there, and its ally, the Apna Dal S, won 2 of them. So in all, the NDA had 64, 62 for the BJP and 2 for the Apna Dal, that made it 64. Now, the BJP's tally in Uttar Pradesh in 2024, the current election, stood at just 33 seats, or 29 less than last time. And if you look at the overall NDA tally in UP, which had 36 seats this time, as compared, if you recall, for 64 seats, that is less than half the total seats the state has. The state has 80 seats. The BJP, for the first time in a long time, polled or got less than half the number of seats. Now, that is a serious setback. And this in a state which is being ruled by one of its strongmen, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. So that comes to the fourth reason, which is that the BJP's hope of a wave around the construction of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya and its Pran Pratishthan early this year really did not materialize. While Prime Minister Modi's polarizing campaign speeches of, if you recall, Mangal Sutras, Mujras and Muslims after the second phase may have showed up the party's core voter support, but the BJP's appeal seems to have been limited, since religion cannot feed empty stomachs, and the young were looking for jobs and not doles. Now, the fifth reason is the BJP's poor showing in Maharashtra, where, if you recall, it had seized power by splitting the Shiv Sena and the Nationalist Congress Party. And this, its poor showing in Maharashtra is clear evidence that manufactured majorities do not work as well. And the fact is that it had seriously damaged this kind of splitting of parties and getting them to their side, had seriously damaged the image of the BJP being a party with a difference. So the results in Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh showed these things, and I'm confining myself to 5 reasons. But among the challenges that Prime Minister Modi and his team will face will be from within the party itself, which will call for an end of the over-centralization of decision-making, which is seen as one of the reasons as to why the BJP didn't do as well as it did in 2019 and 2014. And the other is this arrogant my way or highway approach that had become the norm among senior BJP leaders. So that's something that the BJP will have to introspect and begin to change as it faces fresh battles ahead. And that's something also that Prime Minister Modi will feel the pressure on. Now, overall, the Congress strike rate against the BJP, and that's something for the BJP to worry about in a direct contest where they're contesting the seats and there's no other parties that are doing so. Here, the strike rate of the Congress has gone up from 8% in 2019 to 30% now, and that is why if the Congress does well, the BJP its tally begins to go down, and that's one of the reasons that it's lost its majority, as we saw this time. Now, another interesting trend that was thrown up by election 2024 was the resurgence of regional forces and leaders, including Akhilesh Yadav, Mamata Banerjee, M.K. Stalin, Sharad Pawar, Uddhav Thackeray, and Tejaswi, who really thwarted BJP's bid to create a united, monolithic, pan-national Hindutva party, that too with a brute majority that it had hoped it would win. It is these regional leaders, along with the Congress, that halted the BJP juggernaut and pushed it down below the majority mark. And this, of course, this is a larger statement that one makes. The electorate has rejected BJP's goal of unitarianism and reinforced its belief in India's federal polity, and that they believe best suits the country's diverse communities, cultures, power structures, and aspiration. And the fact that Prime Minister Modi now has to depend on the support of regional leaders like Nitish Kumar and Chandrababu Naidu to survive, for the coalition to survive, is an indication of regionalism's return to center stage of Indian politics. Now, the other major problem for the Prime Minister Modi, of course he might see it as a challenge rather than a problem, is how is he going to manage the contradictions and compulsions of a coalition government? He has not been used to that. I remember both as Chief Minister of Gujarat and as Prime Minister for 2 terms, he had a comfortable majority. But now he will have to work towards building a consensus across parties if he has to push the needle forward on much needed economic reforms. Modi's critics charge him with being both a dominating and domineering leader. And when I spoke to Sudhindra Kulkarni, who was a key aide to Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and if you recalled, Mr. Vajpayee had headed coalition governments between 1998 and 2004. Now, Kulkarni was skeptical about Modi completing his 3rd term, especially given that Nitish and Kumar and Naidu, Chandrababu Naidu, his 2 main allies, are seen to be unreliable and have ditched Modi and the NDA in the past. Now, Kulkarni told me, and it's a very interesting quote, he says, and I'm quoting him, after the election results, Modi's authority has been considerably reduced and his legitimacy diminished. He will not be able to push through constitutional amendments of his choice, like one nation, one poll. And he adds, Kulkarni adds, this is the beginning of the end of the Modi era. Now, that's what his critics feel, but Prime Minister Modi has plenty of supporters, and I spoke to another RSS ideologue, Sheshadri Chari, and he differs considerably from Kulkarni's assessment. He has no doubt that Prime Minister Modi will be able to handle both allies and run-ins with other parties with great skill. As he told me, and I'm quoting him, Modi ji and the allies have complementary requirements that will help them stay together. And he had a very interesting analogy, and since I've done a book on nuclear weapons, he said, it's like 2 nuclear weapon powers who know there is a mutually assured destruction if either party falters, and therefore that is a strong binding force that keeps them together. Interesting. But let's be clear, there are several intractable issues that Modi may find hard to resolve while dealing with his coalition partners, particularly Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar of the JDU, and of course Chandrababu Naidu of Andhra Pradesh, and TDP and Andhra Pradesh, who's the Chief Minister-elect of Andhra Pradesh. Nitish Kumar, for instance, wants the Agniveer scheme reviewed and a national caste census conducted. Both issues that the BJP is not keen to take up on. Nitish Kumar also wants special category status for Bihar to attract more central funds, besides a couple of ministerial berths. These, of course, need to be negotiated, and we'll see the outcome very soon. Naidu too wants special category status for Andhra Pradesh and certain key ministerial berths, and the outcome of that will determine how stable the government will be, depending on what the post Prime Minister Modi allocates to them and whether the his allies are satisfied with what he has been allocated. Naidu also wants to sort out many of the criminal cases he has been charged with by the previous dispensation in Andhra Pradesh. And therefore, he is also looking to, he had made a poll commitment in his manifesto that he would reserve 4% of the government jobs for Muslims in Andhra Pradesh. And this is in direct contravention to Modi's opposition for reservation on religious grounds. Now, that is something that we'll have to see how this issue would be tackled. It's a highly sensitive issue. And remember, Mr. Modi had made it a campaign issue, a big campaign issue. Also, the central government and this special status to get more funds, the central government had always opposed granting it, especially after the 14th Finance Commission advised against it. So these and other issues, I'm sure Prime Minister Modi and his allies will try and work these out, but they may create an impasse and potentially lead to a breakdown in ties as the term progresses. We have to watch out for these issues. Now, the other thing, and these are the contradictions that I was telling you about, if you recall, Prime Minister Modi has always been a vociferous opponent of dynastic politics, or Parivarwad as he used to call it. But Naidu, for instance, is an epitome of that in Andhra Pradesh, being the son-in-law of TDP founder, the late N.T. Rama Rao, and now having a handful of his close relatives in the party and also aspiring to be in the government. Now, there is another issue that the BJP also needs, which is to wash off the accusation of it being a washing machine for leaders in other parties who have cases against them, but for some reason mysteriously disappear once they switch sides to the BJP. That happened in Maharashtra, if you recall, and the party paid a huge price for that. And if you noticed, corruption hardly figured in Modi's campaign speeches in Maharashtra. So the greater test will come later this year, around November, when the assembly elections in Maharashtra is likely to be held. And if the BJP and its allies lose, the Shiv Sena and the Nationalist Congress Party, the split versions of them lose, experts believe that that will begin the end of the coalition if the BJP does not watch out for that development. So Modi will have to work hard to ensure that 3.0 does not end up becoming a zero. Brings me to the question of whether Modi 3.0 will really deliver and what is the big challenges that he faces and the pitfalls that lie ahead. The real test for Prime Minister Modi lies in the handling of the economy, including the key issues of unemployment and inequitable economic growth that had become huge campaign complaints during this particular election. The Prime Minister has several advantages that give him the confidence to achieve these goals. The past 2 terms, and let's give Prime Minister Modi credit, has seen him deliver basic civic amenities such as water and sanitation and infrastructure like roads, and these have reached near saturation levels. He now has the leeway as Prime Minister to hard focus on areas that could create rapid economic growth and generate vast quality employment that the people are looking for. One area that Modi is likely to focus on is a huge capacity building in quality education and skill development. Remember, that is the major complaint, that even though there might be people looking for jobs, they don't have the skills to meet the requirements of that job. So this is going to be a big focus of that. Second, to create more jobs, the Prime Minister is likely to give a major boost to labor-heavy sectors such as tourism and textiles, which generate huge amounts of work and need plenty of labor, besides continuing to spend big on infrastructure, which is, again, when you build roads and rails, you do require a lot of labor, and employment really goes up. Now, manufacturing, especially in the small-scale sector, which had not been doing well in the past 2 governments of his, is expected to receive a renewed focus, as well as agriculture and, importantly, financial reform. Modi is also likely to push schemes for urban renewal, especially in the cities that we all live in, because we know that the quality of our life in our cities is really abysmal and needs great amount of improvement. So he hopes, or possibly will spend a lot of money improving cities so that people can occupy them and production or, in terms of productivity, this would increase considerably, and ease of living and other issues that are there. Of course, technology is going to be one of the key planks that he's looking at, and how India can keep ahead. And in that process, research and development through some generous funding by the government is likely to be the other big thrust that he has. On foreign policy, the focus, of course, will be trying and making India a major pole in international affairs, but very importantly, it will be signing on more trade pacts for exports, because exports are critical, and their growth is one of the key engines that the economy requires to fire at the level that will produce both jobs as well as revenue in terms of money and exports that we will give out. Now, where Prime Minister Modi is likely to encounter resistance from his allies, particularly, and the opposition as well, is in what we call factor reforms in land and labor. These are very tricky issues, as well as in the question of public sector units, the disinvestment of public sector units, along with a really hot potato issue that will come up in about 2 years' time, when the delimitation of constituencies to increase the size of the Lok Sabha to meet the population requirements of the country. This is to happen in 2026 and already become a big subject among South Indian states, who believe that their efficiency is going to go against them because they're much lower populations, and they may result in getting less Lok Sabha seats and therefore less power at the center. But let's also be clear, coalition governments are not all bad. If you recall, the coalition governments of Narasimha Rao and Vajpayee have demonstrated that it is possible to push ahead with far-reaching and dramatic reforms. So the going will be tough for Prime Minister Modi, and that is certain. But then, as he has also amply demonstrated in the past, he is capable of converting the worst adversity into the best opportunity. We saw him do that in COVID and a whole lot of other crises. Now the nation has given Prime Minister Modi and the BJP and its allies a mandate to rule for a third time, while voting in a strong opposition as a balance to protect the principles and institutions that make India a great democracy. That 600 million Indians exercised their franchise recently is a shining example of that tradition. For more details, you can read the cover story and our special issue on Verdict 2024, India Today special issue that is out on the stands. Thank you for listening to this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing but the truth.